Hello everybody, my name is Paris Latka and I'm a master nutrition therapist and eating psychology coach, a yoga instructor, and a therapeutic chef, and I am so excited to be here with you to really offer you some tools and how it is that you can really support this journey of loving your body, of accepting your body, of seeing your body clearly. Thank you, Libby, for inviting me to share some of my gifts. So today I'm going to be talking about how it is that our physiology really affects our minds. And first thing that I want to talk about is one thing that happens in a stress response. And I want to point out that it's only one thing. In a stress response, so many things can happen or do happen. And so this is only one thing. When we are stressed, experiencing either an external stressor or an internal stressor, our body responds, the mind responds in one way. All of the energy and the blood that is flowing through our brain gets shunted from the prefrontal cortex into the reptilian part of the brain, and this is the base of the brain. And it's said that in our reptilian part of our brain, we only know how to react. We don't think clearly, because in our prefrontal cortex, that's known as our conscious mind, where we're able to make sort of rational thoughts, rational conclusions, make rational choices, and conscious choices. When we are in a stress response, that doesn't really happen. When we are reacting, that's oftentimes the programming that was sort of built into us when we were in the womb to about 7 years old. And that's that part of our life where we don't have a filter, we don't know what is truth or what is untruth, and we just sort of take it all in as truth. And that's where a lot of our programming comes from the people around us, raising us. So when we're in a stress response, when we're late for work, when we're late on a deadline for work, when we're going into an interview, when we're maybe going to be public speaking, whatever sort of the stress is, traffic, oh my God, that's a huge stressor. That's a huge stressor for me anyway. Whenever it is that we are experiencing that stress response, then physiologically, mentally, we don't think clearly, because again, all of the blood and the circulating energy gets shunted to the hindsight of our brain, where we only know how to react. So what I'm going to be speaking about are the internal stresses. One internal stress, and that is balancing our blood sugar. So blood sugar is just so fascinating. It really is. And there's so many different implications to it. And I'm really sort of like giving you the short and skinny condensed version of this. There's a lot of details that I will be leaving out for the sake of simplicity, and also for the sake of this, keeping this video short. So I'm going to give you the big bullet points, and then I will also be giving you tools on how it is that you can support your blood sugar on a daily basis, so that your body isn't spun constantly into this internal stress response. So glucose is the broken down sugar molecule from carbohydrates, any carbohydrate, fruit, breads, vegetables, they all get broken down into a glucose molecule. And this glucose molecule enters into our blood from our intestines, and it travels through the blood and it gets dropped off at a cell, and the cell then opens, and glucose is ushered into the cell, where it enters into the mitochondria of the cell specifically, where it's metabolized into ATP. So it turns from this glucose molecule into ATP, which is energy. And energy then feeds the cell, and the cell is able to do its job. It's able to perform its function. A happy cell is when a cell has energy so that it can perform its function. So our blood sugar levels are very, very tightly monitored. If we either have too much sugar in our blood or we do not have enough sugar in our blood, we go into a little bit of a stress response. It's very, very stressful for the body, actually, when we don't have enough or when we have too much. So we want Goldilocks here. We don't want too much, we don't want too little, we want right in the middle. So when somebody is dieting or skipping meals or just eating a really crummy breakfast or on a fat-free diet, if we're eating really low quality proteins, then this can all set us up for the blood sugar roller coaster, which, I mean, I love roller coasters, I really, really do, but I would not want to be on one all day long, every day. It's way, way, way too draining. So, excuse me. So, another aspect to the blood sugar that I just really want to touch on, because it's really important to understand, is that whenever we eat food, we sort of awaken the pancreas, and the pancreas secretes a hormone called insulin. And insulin and glucose work in tandem together. They have a really great relationship. So how we can think of insulin is it's a key to the cell. It's a key to the cell that unlocks the door that lets glucose enter inside of the cell, where it can then go to the mitochondria, where it then can be metabolized into ATP. So if there's a disproportionate ratio between glucose and insulin, then that can also be really stressful for the body. A way that the insulin and glucose work together also is that when there's too much sugar in the blood, the pancreas will release more insulin so that the glucose can then enter inside of the cells and be used as energy. If the cells don't need the energy, then what will happen is that the insulin will turn the glucose molecule into a triglyceride. And that's when we start to gain weight. So if you or someone that you know experiences fatigue after meals, if you are experiencing irritability and maybe getting shaky if you don't eat proper meals at proper times, if you feel really high from food and then all of a sudden 30 minutes later you feel like super duper crashed, then I'm thinking that you might be on this blood sugar roller coaster. So I have a picture here that helps describe it really well. I don't know how well you can actually see it. So we're going to be looking at the top little picture. And so this is our normal healthy blood sugar range. This is Goldilocks right here. When we wake up in the morning and we have coffee and we have maybe a glass of orange juice, maybe a bagel, or you go to Starbucks and you get a pastry, whatever it is, and then that's all you have for breakfast, and you go into work. So this is where this increase of energy is going to come from. But because those are such refined carbohydrates and there's not a lot of healthy fat or good quality protein within those food choices, what happens is that blood glucose gets burned really quickly. All of this glucose enters into the blood really, really fast because there's no fiber. Quality fats or quality proteins to slow the release in which glucose is entering into your blood. So all of this glucose gets released at once into your blood, eliciting a really big insulin response, right? Because insulin is that key that unlocks the door that lets the glucose go in. And so we don't want any excess glucose circulating through the system. And that's why there's this huge insulin response, because it's gauging like, whoa, this is a lot of sugar. Whoa, I better release a lot of insulin. So all of a sudden, the insulin goes into the cell, it feeds the cell. We feel great. We feel great for maybe an hour. Have you ever eaten a breakfast similar to this, or maybe like cereal with skim milk, or just a piece of toast or something, and you get to work or you get to school or something and you get hungry like so fast. You're like, why am I hungry? I just ate. Well, I'm totally answering that question for you. So all of the sugar enters into your blood, and because there's so much sugar and now all of a sudden there's so much insulin, that is a stress response. Literally. And so again, we respond to that stress response in so many different ways. One of them being we don't think clearly. We don't think clearly with the circumstances that we are addressing in the moment. And also when we walk past a mirror and we see ourselves and we all of a sudden don't like what it is that we're seeing and start really beating ourselves up, that's because we're not thinking clearly. We're going to the hindsight of the brain where we only know how to react and eliciting all of those old programming that we were programmed with when we were a child. So this is where that is coming up, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're fine for that hour, and then your blood sugar starts to drop and you start to get really maybe irritable, possibly shaky, and then we start to crash like hardcore. And so that is right here. And now all of a sudden there is not enough sugar in the blood. And that's when we go to something quick, something sweet, something that is going to increase our blood sugar levels rather quickly. And that is often something refined because our body knows that it's not going to take a long time to break it down, and the sugar from that particular food that we're eating will enter into our blood system really fast, giving the cells energy and giving our minds energy, because our mind primary fuel is glucose. So anyway, so it happens all over again. So we just ate something really quick to give us that initial spark again and energy, to then send us back up. Usually it's really refined, usually it's really sugary, and then of course there's too much glucose in the blood. Whoa, mayday, 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 release more insulin, because if too much glucose in the system is like really, really toxic. And then all of a sudden, because it's really refined, it has no fiber, it doesn't have any quality protein or quality fat, we then dump again. Oh, it's so exhausting, this blood sugar roller coaster. So what we really want to practice is balancing our blood sugar. And we do this a lot of different ways. And one of them being when you wake up in the morning, to eat a quality protein and a quality fat with some fiber. So that looks like a really great smoothie with some awesome protein powder and quality fat with it. So maybe putting a tablespoon of almond butter in it. And so that you're getting the fiber from low glycemic fruits, and then you're getting the really great protein and fat to help slow down the rate in which sugar is entering into the blood. So here's the graph that we really want to practice, and this is Goldilocks here, and you can see we are riding a wave in Goldilocks all day long. Yeah, all day long. I don't know about you, but I mean, I do like roller coasters, but I like riding waves way better. Like way better. Way more relaxing. And so actually, before I just jump into that, what I want to share with this model first is that the increased insulin, it starts to build fat, and so does the increase of cortisol. And so this is how we gain weight. This is how we sustainably lose weight and also support all of our body systems in that process, by feeding ourselves what it is that we need, and not too much and not too little. Again, what is worth mentioning again is that when we're supporting ourselves with healthy blood sugar balance, we are not eliciting this stress response that makes us spin our mind into the reptilian part of the brain where we only know how to react. So this helps us to think clearly, to